For the first time in a long time, things are looking bright in Birdland. What's going on, guys? Today we are breaking down the Orioles spring training roster and going over a couple of headlines that you need to pay attention to throughout this spring. If you didn't know, spring training started this past week and games are already underway. Let's go ahead and go over a few notable players that you should keep your eye on throughout the spring. Starting first is Michael Balman, the next guy who will make his major league debut in the starting rotation. Last season, we saw guys like Dean Kremer and Keegan Aiken make their major league debuts and do pretty well, and Michael Balman should be the next guy to do that. In my opinion, his stuff is probably better than Keegan Aiken's. I'm not sure about Dean Kremer. I think Balman might be a little bit better, but it's hard to tell. Kremer's already had some success in the major league, so we'll see once they're both up there and how they both do. But overall, Michael Balman, I'm really excited to see how he does in the major leagues. And hopefully we'll be able to see him this summer or this fall in the majors. But we'll definitely have to keep an eye on how he does in the spring, as that'll be a good reference point to what we should expect later this season. Next, we have Isaac Matson, who already pitched in a spring training game so far this year. He was acquired in the Dylan Bundy trade last year with the Angels, and he is a relief pitcher. I do think he will definitely be in the majors at some point this year, probably sooner than later. Just because it's a lot easier to slide a guy in the bullpen than the starting rotation or the starting lineup. But yeah, keep an eye on him in spring training. Probably starting the season in AAA, but we're starting to see some of these guys that Michael Elias has been getting in these trades with Bundy and Iglesias, and Cobb, and a lot of the other veterans we traded away. We'll get to the Givens trade in a second. But Matson's one of the first guys we'll see from those trades, and hopefully he does well, and I look forward to seeing some more from him this season and in spring training. Next, we got Tyler Nevin, a first base prospect we acquired in the Michael Givens trade from the Rockies. Obviously, first base is a little bit up for grabs. I mean, we've got Trey Mancini back, but he can also slide into the outfield. Same thing with Ryan Mountcastle. He could play first, but he could slide DH in the outfield. So the spot's there for Nevin if he wants to come up and take it. It'll be interesting to see how they work him in, because like I said, you've got a lot of guys fighting for 2 or 3 spots with the outfield and first base. But there's definitely space for him to work his way onto this roster. He should be slated to play in AAA this year, but we will see what happens. He could make his major league debut. I expect him probably to be one of those guys you see come up in the fall, but we'll see. Maybe if he has a really, really good spring, we'll see him a little bit earlier than that. Next, we have Rylan Bannon, a guy acquired in the Manny Machado trade from a few years ago. We'll probably see him at second base or maybe third base throughout the spring, as well as maybe a couple plays at shortstop. I don't know. I believe he also tried working out at catcher. I may be completely wrong on that. I'll look into that and let you guys know in the edit. But I think he's going to work into a bit of a utility player role this spring. And we've got some open spots at second and third, and many veterans there that aren't in the long-term plan. So if Rylan Bannon has a really, really good spring, he could possibly crack the opening day roster. I really don't see that happening, especially with the way Elias and Hyde have treated bringing players up from the minors. But you never know. Maybe he's the first guy, and hopefully he can turn into something, and we'll see him later this spring or this summer have a big impact on the major league roster. Next, we have Jamai Jones, who I talked about in my last video. If you didn't check that out, make sure you go watch it. There'll be a link up in the cards somewhere up here. But we went over all the offseason moves, but Jamai Jones is a very nice second base prospect we got from the Angels for Alex Cobb. I really, really, really want to see a good spring from him, because he could make the major league roster right out the bat. He was with the Angels in the major leagues at the end of the season last year. Not too much experience in the majors, but definitely enough that he could make the roster. I do see him starting in AAA just to work some things out with his swing a little bit, get that average up a little bit, see the ball a little bit better. But we could see him in the majors if he has a really, really good spring training. And he is probably most likely to be our second baseman of the future out of who we've got right now. You could see some of these shortstop prospects like maybe Jordan Westberg or Adam Hall slide over to second, but Jamai Jones is probably the most high-profile second base prospect we got right now, and we'll see how he does in spring training. Next, we got Yasniel Diaz, who this is the guy everyone should be watching. This is the next really big prospect who should make his way up to Baltimore this season. I don't envy Brandon Hyde right now. He's got some really, really difficult decisions that we'll get into in a little bit in that outfield. But Yasniel Diaz should definitely add to that, and he is a very, very good power hitter. He can crush the ball. I'd like to see him get that average a little bit higher before he gets in the majors later this year. I look at him to be in the majors probably summer or fall. If he doesn't make the major leagues this year, there's no way he's not in the major leagues this season unless he gets injured. But hopefully we'll see a really strong spring from him. He already does have a home run in spring training so far, and who knows? Maybe he can boost that time up to where maybe he gets in the major leagues in May or June instead of having to wait all the way till September. But I'd love to see him in the majors as soon as possible, and hopefully you want to get someone for your future from that Manny Machado trade, and between him and Kremer, they look like they could be two very solid pieces for the future of the Baltimore Orioles. Some notable non-roster invites to keep your eye on. You got Felix Hernandez, Matt Harvey, Thomas Eshelman, Fernando Abad, Austin Wynn, Stevie Wilkerson, and a couple others that I'm not going to go into too much detail on. But if you guys want more info on them, definitely go check out my last video. I went in depth on all of them. But keep your eye on them. There are some guys that have to work their way onto the roster, hence being non-roster invites. But I definitely see a couple of them making the roster, specifically Felix Hernandez and Thomas Eshelman. Okay, next we got a glimpse at the future, and this is the main reason I watch and listen to spring training so closely, is because you get to, especially when you're in the middle of a rebuild, because you get to see a lot of the guys who are going to be the future stars in Camden Yards for years to come. And we got a nice glimpse at that future this spring training with Adley Rushman, Adam Hall, Gunnar Henderson, Jordan Westberg, and then Heston Kjerstad is, I believe, in camp as well. I don't know. He might get some more playing time later in the spring, but I don't see him getting too much this spring training, considering he hasn't had any pro experience whatsoever. But Adley Rushman's the guy you really want to pay attention to. Obviously, the #2 prospect in all of baseball and the #1 prospect on the Orioles. He is easily the catcher of the future. His defense is already there at major league level. If it was just purely off defense, he'd be starting catcher in Camden Yards in April. But that bat is still good. Still lots to like about his swing and his bat, but obviously still working up to that major league level, and hopefully we can see some of that this spring. If we see a great spring from him, it could be the start to a potential great minor league season. That sees him end up in Baltimore in the fall, in September call-ups. But unlike a lot of people, I don't see him quite in the major leagues this season, but definitely next season. But who knows? Maybe he gets his first little taste this year, and I'd love to see it. Next, we got Adam Hall, who's kind of been shoved to the side a little bit with some of these younger prospects when Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westberg at shortstop. But Adam Hall is very good at shortstop, and definitely don't forget about him. He is our number 16th prospect right now. He didn't get quite as much work in, I don't believe, as he wasn't at the alternate site during last season. But hopefully he's not too rusty and can get in there and maybe make a run at AAA and maybe make it to the major league roster this season. Then we got Jordan Westberg, our number 7 prospect. He is a shortstop, and he is from last year's draft, so this will be the first we see of him as well. I don't really know what else to say about him. Hopefully he has a great spring, and we'll get to see our first little taste of Jordan Westberg. And then finally we have Gunnar Henderson. His first spring training, he was drafted in the same draft as Adley Rushman. He could be a shortstop when he makes it to the majors. He could be a third baseman. Depends how much size he is, how big he is, and what his size looks like when he's ready to come to the majors. This was a guy who you heard non-stop good things about at the alternate site last season. They hyped him up a ton. So hopefully he delivers on some of that hype and has a really good spring training from what we see him in. And overall, it'll be a great experience for him to finally get up with some of those major league guys and get some at-bats against hopefully a couple major league pitchers. But this is my biggest guy to keep an eye, one of my biggest guys to keep an eye on for spring training, because we've seen Adley in spring training. We haven't seen Gunnar yet. But hopefully he has a great spring training and he proves why he should be one of the foundations for the next great Baltimore Orioles teams. With all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. And if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And if you want to see my takes on spring training games as they happen, follow me on Twitter. There'll be a link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a fantastic day.